happening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mindful Constitution podcast. Today, I am diving in with Lindsay, Granger of Skyclad Apothecary, which is a zero waste apothecary for kind of like bulk herbs and also witch supplies,
Woohoo!
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty exciting. So, how do you succinctly explain it to people when
Yeah. So
they
we
ask?
are a zero waste apothecary ingredients. We very specifically are doing single ingredients only. Sometimes you see a lot of people doing like
Fun.
blends or selling tinctures. Like we really wanted to be a supply company. And it's
Mhm.
anything, it really comes from like my personal experience with different ingredients and what I use them for, and then sort of expanding from there. It's anything you
Mhm.
would need to make a homemade skincare product, homemade cleaning product, herbal medicine product, or like a witchcraft working. So everything that we carry has both magical and mundane use. We are not
Mhm.
really planning on carrying anything that has just magical use. Um, it's a pretty
Yeah.
practical supply company, you know.
You have to be
Yes,
multi-purpose for the muggles and the
correct.
witches.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, how cool. So you can use all of these different ingredients to make cleaning products, skincare products is huge,
Yep.
right? Um, and then also for more magical
Yes.
uses, which we'll dive into more, which is really fun to talk about. But before we do, I always start the podcast by asking my guests to share about their personal story, what brought them to the business
Mhm.
they're in and the work that they do. So let's start there.
Sure. So, I remember, my undergrad is in nutrition and statistics. I really
Whoa.
thought I was gonna move into like nutrition research, but
Mm-hmm.
I, it didn't really fit. I'm not exactly an academic. um, so college was very difficult for me, but it's a very clear path from starting to learn about food industry to caring about what kinds of things you put in your body to starting to care about what kind of things you put on your body. So my
Mm-hmm.
first, you know, move into some of this stuff was making my own deodorant, making my own sunscreen, that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And when did you start doing all that?
So like my junior year of college, because I was having such a hard time at college that I needed something else. I ended up doing my yoga teacher training along with that third year of college. Like I was miserable. Um, Needed something else
What
to keep
did
me
you
afloat.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So just kind of recognizing that, like maybe taking the academic route, but it sounds like what you were learning impacted why you kind of started making personal care
Mm-hmm.
products. Meaning, so I guess my question is like, what were you learning about the food and personal care industry that inspired you to make your own deodorants and personal care products?
Yeah, you just start learning that there isn't really, or like people that make food products are not making them from a nutritional standpoint. They're making them from a
Hmm.
how much can we sell standpoint, and how can we get people to continue buying this product.
Yeah.
Rather than, you grow up thinking like, yeah, there's like candy and sugary stuff, but like food is made to be food, right? And that's it just turns out is not the case. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
I was asking that as a kind of rhetorical question on my end because I feel like I've been down a lot of these holes
yeah.
before, but I definitely wanted to hear what your answer was based on like a nutritional
Mm-hmm.
background. It's scary when you start realizing it's really composed to be more almost addictive and marketable than nutritious.
Well, and you start to learn too that like some of the things that we as humans are gravitate towards in like what a product will do for us are not the same things as what keeps us the most healthy, right? You think about deodorant, you think about the concept of the aluminum in certain deodorants or the antiperspirant part of certain deodorants being like endocrine disrupting. Most of us don't
Mm-hmm.
care if it'll stop us from sweating. Like, things are marketed to us based on what they'll do for us sort of short term or with like a social lens on them. Foods that are marketed for weight loss or low cal or whatever, like whatever feeds into our deepest insecurities is what's going to sell. And
Mm-hmm.
um I thought research in nutrition was going to be the way for me to add and change that culture. But as you move forward, you realize that actually it's creating a business that does things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
thinking about that kind of stuff, it's a much faster impact.
Right. I know. I always say like vote with your dollar too, which
Yes,
is kind of
very big on that
the
here.
yeah, the consumer end, whereas you're on the entrepreneur or, the marketing end of it, where it's like I'm creating the products that I feel are lacking in our culture, economy, marketplace, where, and also on the consumer's end, I think a lot of us just have a lot of, the average person just has blind trust or in purchasing products that are marketed to their deepest insecurities, thinking like, oh, this must be perfectly safe, it's being sold, but it's really not always the case. And it's kind of them profiting off of our lack of knowledge around the fact that that's not always the case and oftentimes isn't. And there's tons and tons of things in our food that and personal care products
Right.
that provide immediate gratification or serve some instantaneous purpose and kind of play on our desire for quick
Yeah.
results and like quick fixes, but they're actually horrible for us. Even with the example of like things being illegal in Europe, that's not
Yeah.
here. Why is this not? Why is this allowed here? It's literally the same brands will have like versions, European versions that eliminate certain toxic ingredients that they just keep in them.
Well, and some of it is profit driven, right? And some of it, what was I going to say? I had something else to say. Oh, and we don't really have the skills to, like, even if scientific research is done, even if that research is published, not behind a paywall somewhere, we don't really have the skills
Yeah.
to read it. Like, I have the skills because I double majored in nutrition and statistics. Like, I can look at
Yeah.
statistics and understand what they're telling me and whether it was a significant difference or not. But if you are getting your information from Facebook headlines, it like it's impossible to understand what is real and what even is related to you. Like, if you read a study and the study shows that, I don't know, I'm doing a lot of research on chamomile right now for like another project. If
Yeah.
you read a study, but you don't see that it was done in elderly patients, and you just take that information and you try to apply it to your teenager, and then you're like, didn't work. Science is bad and wrong. Like, you have
Science.
to take into account all that stuff, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt where these studies are done on small groups of people, and every study you'll ever read will say the data suggests. You like
Right.
proving anything scientifically is not a real thing. We're just
Mhm.
observing patterns. We're just observing what happens either over time or in different groups. And then we can sort of make decisions from there about what will probably happen.
Yeah, and that's not even including, right, like the financial interests of paid research
Right.
and
Who's funding the
skewed
research?
lenses of, yeah, who's presenting it, how they're presenting it, what results they're choosing to show you versus like what they're leaving out. It's really easy to make things look a certain way with regards to statistics or research. And yeah, even the landscape of research itself is really scary because of all the politics with publishing in journals and what gets accepted versus what doesn't, and what's in alignment with like what they want to
Right.
publish and the narrative they're hoping for and the investments involved. So it's kind of like it feels like a crapshoot, but I feel ultimately it just goes back to like, yeah, maybe my main goal is like supporting companies I trust and also voting with my dollar and kind of common sense when it comes to nutrition and um, even personal care is just like keeping it super simple and close to nature. And a lot of times that can help as well.
Well, and nutrition is so individualized. Like, I remember getting sort of
Mhm.
frustrated with the idea of research in nutrition because most of the time it means nothing because
Mhm.
it has to do with what your body wants, needs. I could be a person who needs, a third, a third, a third carbs, fat, protein. And you could be a person who
Mhm.
needs half a plate of carbs to function at
Right.
your peak based on what your body wants and needs and uses throughout the day, based on your lifestyle, based on your DNA. Like, it's just so different person to person that you start looking at
Mhm.
research and going, well, yeah, maybe. Like, this is what it showed
For
in this
somebody,
200
yeah,
people, but, how does that actually apply to me in my real life?
right. Yeah, it's almost because I have my graduate degree in nutrition
Oh,
too, and it's
cool.
like
Yeah.
the more, yeah, so we're both. The more you learn about it, the more the simple that your recommendations becomes. It's like, well, beyond just eating as closely to nature as possible and like
Right.
reducing toxic load of what you're ingesting through chemical laden processed foods. Uh, it really is different for everyone, and bioindividuality and all of that stuff is plays such a big role that you can't like universally recommend anything in terms of diet, but people want such like
They want
specific.
specific recommendations. And then
They want meal plans.
the other thing I always hear too, which, is something that I subscribe to, is the idea that the stress created in your body from worrying about eating the processed food is actually more
Mhm.
damaging than just eating the processed
Right,
food at that, birthday
right.
party or event. Like, right, we're not talking about eating a bag of chips every night or having that be part of your diet, but
Mhm.
if you're like, yikes, that thing has, red dye 40 in it that my kid's going to eat at his friend's birthday party and then not have again for a year. Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, I was just talking to my friend on another
Yeah.
podcast who we went through the same nutrition program, and she does anti-diet nutrition and
Yes.
mindful eating and all that. And I think it's such an interesting interplay, the kind of psychological component versus what we're eating. And it's like if you hyperfixate on, never eating anything bad, that's psychologically bad for you. Whereas if you don't give a shit at all and you're just eating whatever, that can also be bad. So it's like really finding that balance between what you're eating and how you're eating.
Hmm.
And, recognizing that there's uh just as much damage to being, like
Yes,
orthorexic and
absolutely.
consumed with everything you're doing,
Right. You have to think
because
about,
the
is your diet supporting the life that you're trying to lead? Are you eating enough to have the energy to do what you want to do? Are you getting all of your, vitamins and minerals? And are you getting, approximately the right amount of everything so that you feel good and are having fun living your life?
right, yeah, yeah, food is fuel, food is
Hmm.
joy, food is like unity. It's so many things, and our society is really big on like compartmentalizing and finding one way. And it's like, no, it's much more
Yeah.
nuanced than that in terms of like our relationship to food and the purpose it serves, and um not just eating for fuel but not just eating for joy, kind of like combining all of these dynamics together in a way that supports us in our most kind of vibrant expression or however we're hoping to live. But so okay, back to we
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like went
we
off
we
on
got
this
off
tangent.
track here.
It's totally cool because I'm all about this topic, but you said that pretty much you started your own path after just starting to learn a lot
Yeah,
about
so I started
this
making
industry.
my own deodorant, and I actually
Yeah.
did it for like a nutrition class project where we had to like create a business. So
Hmm.
I like created a little Etsy store, and I ended up like, selling a few deodorants, and like that's how I got the entrepreneur bug as well. Um, so it started with thinking about what I'm putting in and on my body. And then, do you remember Stumble Upon? So
No.
it was like this website where you could put in your interests. It was a little bit like Pinterest. And then you would
Mm.
just click the stumble button at the top, and it would bring you to a new web page based on your general
Oh, got it.
interests. And so
Yes.
in like,
Like, if you liked this, you'll like
yeah, but
this.
it
Kind of
but
like
it
on the
brought you to like blog pages or recipe pages, or based on whatever you had said you were interested in. And I stumbled upon um the woman's name is B Johnson, and the her blog was like Zero Waste Home or something. She's the lady that really popularized the like 16-ounce mason jar of trash that her family of 4 made in a year type of thing.
Oh,
And I looked at
like
that and
how
was
is that
like,
possible?
yeah, I can add another project. Like,
Yeah.
let's see how zero waste I could possibly be. Became a
Mm.
very intense hyperfixation for me. Um, very intense. Very,
I know. Even talking about the like psychological component of poisons
yeah.
and stuff, I'm like, oh, I totally get it because firsthand, like I've gone through all of these rabbit holes where I'm like, oh my God. And you recognize that element that's like, is this healthy?
Well, it's so interesting. I'm like sort of coming full circle now with it, but
Hmm.
when I first went zero waste, it was like very annoying and very like sacrificing all joy and function for the pursuit of like that dopamine hit of being like, I did it. I actually did that thing and I didn't make any trash. Like, how
Yeah.
cool, except my life is in shambles. Like,
Everything else about my
everything
life is
else is
falling apart.
terrible,
I cannot
but
create
I
any.
don't have to take the trash out because I don't make any trash. Like, very annoying.
Oh
I
my God,
can't
that's so
I can't
funny.
believe my roommates at the time put up with that, but they did. Um,
Those are the real
right.
ones.
But it started limiting like what I could eat, and a big part of who I am and who I've always been is I love beauty, hair, makeup, clothes, and you go zero waste and all you can't do any of that. Um so I really like washed away a big part of my personality trying to go zero waste. And eventually you just burn out because there's
Yeah.
that part of your personality that's not being fed and not being allowed to exist. And it's
Hmm.
unsustainable. So I've come full circle now, and I'm actually doing some like content around it. With the Apothecary, I'm doing like a Skyclad coven where there's like community and education around all this stuff, but effectively you just sort your priorities a little bit differently, right? Joy has to come first. And then I have to accommodate my neurodivergence. What?
Sanity is.
Right.
I said sanity is under joy.
Yeah, it's joy, but then also, being realistic about what my neurodivergence needs as well. Um,
Hmm.
then you figure out how to make all those things as zero waste as possible. And then, I layer some witchy stuff in at the bottom. But, getting my priorities in that order has been immensely helpful to my like health and
Right.
happiness. Um,
Yeah. Don't sacrifice your health and happiness for zero
right,
waste, but zero waste is important.
exactly. Um,
Mhm.
so I knew this already when I started this business, but effectively, I was making all my own stuff, trying to be zero waste, And so then you go to buy, I don't know, coconut oil or something from the grocery store in the amount that I needed, comes in a plastic jug, or you have to buy it from Amazon or whatever. So I'm like 23 going to these like wholesale websites, buying 5 gallons of coconut oil at a time, because if you can reduce like your plastic per, ounce of product, then you're doing better. And like, when can I get like a
Yeah.
barrel of coconut oil so that I can be like doing it the best?
Yeah.
And so eventually I was like, well, if I create a business around it, then I'll get there faster. Like
Yeah.
this,
Can buy in even more bulk.
yes, creating this business was very, very much self-serving at the very beginning. It was like I wanted to be able to have barrels of, coconut oil and vinegar and whatever, like in my garage.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh my gosh,
also,
that's
talks around zero waste have shifted from it being this very individual responsibility, where if you use a straw, then you are, shoving them up turtles' noses. You are
yeah.
personally responsible for that. I am enjoying the shift of responsibility onto business owners, because, like it
Yeah.
or not, that's how we function. Like, we live in a capitalist society where the norms are dictated by businesses, and their success is dictated by who will buy from them.
Right. And truly the ones that are making the larger impact in terms of especially things like the environment and waste. Like if all of us collectively stop shoving straws up turtles' noses, there's still and the companies do nothing. I
Right.
mean, what kind of impact is that really going to have, like, when in reality big corporations changing is probably a more needed a little bit higher on the priority
Right.
list.
And there are a lot of people that, buy from us specifically because we're in zero waste packaging, but there are other people who don't care about that at all, who just like where our price point is, or they like, the amount they can get at a time. Something that we really focus on is, in terms of zero waste, but also in terms of being cost effective, we have containers all the way from like 5-pound paper bags all the way down to tiny little 2-ounce jars. I made a TikTok a
Mhm.
little while ago about someone who bought like a bag like this of star anise, and they were like, "I'm never
Mhm.
going to use this in my whole lifetime. If you need star anise, I will mail you one." So we wanted to create a place where you could get a little 2-ounce jar of star anise that you only need for your Christmas cider.
Yeah.
Saves you money. There's no plastic packaging. And you don't throw that bag out after 2 years because you're so frustrated with it sitting in your pantry.
The goddamn
I gotta get it.
sarnies
I gotta get it
staring
out of here.
staring
Like, I've done that.
at you.
I've looked at something that I thought
Yeah,
I
you're
would
like,
be able
I
to use up eventually, and I go,
Mhm.
I can't look at this anymore. Tossed.
Right, and then you need it, like,
Yes,
in the next day,
of
but
course.
like, whatever. Gotta get this out of here, I
Yeah.
can't look at this any longer. Yeah, so then essentially all your packaging is reusable, recyclable, and it's paper or
Yeah, so
glass,
we package
basically.
in, we've got glass jars and these really pretty blue glass bottles because I think they're pretty.
Oh,
Um,
I love glass.
and
I'm a sucker for blue
they're
glass.
so pretty. Oh, like
Yes,
instead of the amber
yes.
bottles because they're
Uh-huh.
boring. But yeah, so
Yes.
everything glass is meant to be reused. We put
Mhm.
compostable labels on the glass, and the idea, how we really want people to engage with our company, is if you like our jars and like the aesthetic of our jars, you buy it once, and then any subsequent order would be in a paper refill, because you can just then refill the jar that you already have that's nicely labeled. Or if you don't like our jars and you have containers you already like at home, you can just order the paper refills. And those are
Yeah,
compostable. There's
genius.
like a little tin tie at the top that you take out, but then they're home compostable. Yeah.
Amazing. So all this started from your own selfish
Oh, yeah.
desire to be zero waste, and here we are. That's so amazing. So when you think of, I'm just curious as a random
Yeah.
question, like the top three herbs you think like people come to you the most for.
So lavender's a big one. Obviously, you can use it in
Oh
so many
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Lavender's an
totally.
easy one. Chamomile's a big one. People love just like
Mhm.
loose chamomile tea. I had a friend who has a like almost 1-year-old, and she makes him
Yeah.
chamomile tea before bed at night to help him
Mhm.
sleep. So she got like a
Mm.
big bag of it because she uses it every day. And then what's
Perfect.
next?
Ooh, we can drug them to sleep
Yeah.
with chamomile tea. That's a good tip. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, I mean, so it's so funny. So with this like sort of other content thing I'm making, one of the offerings that I want to do is these really finally using my degree, um, do these like deep dive literature reviews on each of the ingredients we offer in the shop. We're doing
Yeah,
chamomile right
which is
now, and the coolest thing I've seen about chamomile is like truly zero negative side effects. I haven't seen a
no
single
overdose.
I haven't seen a single thing that isn't like if you're allergic to chamomile, or like ragweed or these like couple of things that are related to it. Otherwise, not a single you can't overdose on chamomile.
Yeah, that's so helpful because I wanted to highlight what you just said again for anyone who didn't catch that. That's listening is she's compiling like research on all different herbs so that she can basically give like an overview of
Hmm.
them, right?
Yeah, I'm doing
And I think that's
I
so helpful because
what you know, you go ahead.
no, no money in like herbal or supplemental research that is, like it's never going to be funded by big pharma or any the FDA. So being able to have access to like that kind of information is really helpful for people
Yeah, it's
to
interesting.
compile
I
their
can only
research.
access like whatever's free right now. Like as this sort of thing grows, I'd love to, subscribe to places where I can get, full articles and stuff, but it's interesting to see
Mhm.
what kind of research is being done. I saw something like, elderly patients for insomnia. It's, recommended for um yeah, there's a bunch of things. It's good for like colicky babies too. It can be
Mhm.
really soothing to digestive systems.
Mhm. Ooh, so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting when I had my very first uh like pregnancy
Yeah.
check-in when way in the beginning, and she was telling me, "Oh, like, no herbal teas during pregnancy at all." And it's like and I asked why, and she said, "Oh, there's no research on it really." But it's just so interesting to me because it's like, okay, so there is all of these pharmaceuticals that you can
Hmm.
allegedly take, that there's research on, but you can't take herbal teas because there's no research. It just seems backwards sometimes.
Well, and
So I think that's
it takes having a particular lens, I think, to be able to feel comfortable taking anecdotal evidence, millennia of anecdotal evidence, and being able to see it in your mind as this like longitudinal study almost. If you
right.
take sort of the amalgamation of what people have said chamomile did for them over, hundreds and hundreds of years, you can glean out
Right.
what may be an issue for you, what may be a benefit for you. Um, and then it's up to everyone's personal risk tolerance. Like literally everything I've seen about chamomile specifically has no, adverse effects. Um, it's looked at often for its like anti-cancer properties.
Right.
And by anti-cancer, we're not talking about like I have cancer and it got rid of it. We're talking about free radical scavenging, um, free
Mhm.
radical reduction, and actually no, there was a little bit of like I think it's called apoptosis, where the cancer cells burst. There was some
Yeah.
of that activity observed with chamomile.
Like cancer cells.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it showed also, they look into like, does it have any negative side effects on the like normal liver cells? And the answer was no. They found no negative effects on like normally behaving cells, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, so cool. And see, that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like specifically said no chamomile tea. And I was
That's
like, for
so
some reason,
weird.
something tells me that, like, yeah, saying like no chamomile tea, but you can take like this pharmaceutical for nausea that has like 20 side effects or whatever. And to me, I was like, this like logically
I almost
like
the
without looking into it further at all, I feel like a lot of things are just so streamlined in the medical system. And it's like,
Well, right.
if you
There's
think
so
about
much
it,
nuance to that recommendation. Are they recommending that to you because you don't know how the plants are prepared? Because we can't understand like what pesticides have been on them or how to clean them properly. Like that's a very different conversation than like you're not allowed to have chamomile tea.
right.
But yeah, it like takes too much time and whatever.
Yeah, just sweeping generalizations are just easier to make than kind of telling someone, well, like this or
Yeah.
that. So it's interesting. But yeah, I think it's so cool that you're doing that as a resource that is going to be so thorough and
It's
educational.
taking forever, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm
gosh, I
having
know. It's going to be,
flashbacks to finishing like my college capstone and being
yeah.
like, I'm tired. Maybe it's done now. But no, I'm going to
Oh
do it
my gosh,
thoroughly and make it a really valuable resource for people.
it's going to be amazing. I wanted to talk to and kind of like switch gears to something we were talking a little bit about before we hopped on, which was creating unconventional business models or entrepreneurship in general. And I know at one point I was saying I had seen a reel of yours or something where you, or a
Yeah,
TikTok, where
they're the same.
you
I just make
said,
TikToks and repost
yeah,
them to real.
exactly. Content cross
Oh, yeah.
utilization, people. It's genius. But so it said something along the lines of like when your dad asks like what kind of market there is for the
Oh, yeah.
business you're creating. And it just got me thinking about, even in my own life, creating sober curious health coaching and people being like, what the hell are you doing? And so how do you navigate, family or friends doubting
Hmm.
your vision with the business? Because zero waste apothecary for witchcrafting and personal care
Yep.
products is niche,
It's
right?
it is and it isn't. No, totally. Like I could have
Yeah.
marketed this business as just an ingredient company and not niched down into zero waste or witchcraft. But those are the things that I identify with and the reason
Mhm.
I care about this stuff. And I knew that I'm not that unique of a person. Like there's no way I'm the only person that cares about this. And the more you get into both avenues, both the zero waste and the witchcraft, you learn that they're pretty hand in hand in terms of
Yeah.
witchcraft being a lot about honoring the natural cycles of the world that we're living in. Um, Zero waste is just like really right there. Like
Right?
you'd have
It
to
is,
actively
isn't it?
ignore it.
Yeah. Like you can't be a green witch without being zero
No,
waste.
I don't think so. I think you at least have to
Yeah,
be
at least there.
attempting to
Mhm.
reduce your negative impact on the world we live in. And a lot of that is restricted by what kind of budget you have. And I think that's why I talk about like, yeah, get the herbs from wherever you can get them from. And then when you have the money or the time or the energy, come get them from us. Like
Yeah.
you can't put your practice on hold just because you can't afford, the particular item that aligns with all of your values. Like if it aligns with some of your values for now, that's going to be just fine.
Right, doing the best you can with what you
Mhm.
have. That was a mantra somebody, shared on the podcast recently, and I really liked that too. I think it makes things much more approachable when you're trying to create positive, and incremental change, is not trying to do it all at
Mhm.
once. But so in terms of dealing with, like, family or
Yeah.
friends that are kind of like, "What the hell are you doing?" How did that
It's
go?
well, my family has seen me cycle through a few of these ideas. So
Yeah,
it's not unfounded, their wonder if I've thought this through. But
right.
sometimes they're just in a different plane of consumerism than I am. And at some point it really is just a matter of like our like Google news feeds are different. And mine is full of people utilizing these kinds of ingredients and caring about what kind of packaging they come in. And theirs is full of like, where do I put my investments right now? Because of our, age difference and whatever. And I just my dad is very much like a quiz you kind of person. He'll be like, "Who wants this stuff?" And I'll be like, "These people, these people, these people." And he'll be like, "But did you like do your like profit margins? Like do you know that you're making money on each of these products?" And I go, "Yeah. Yeah, I did." Like,
Oh my god, that's so
and
funny. Yeah. I see so much overlap with my own because too, even think when I first started, people were definitely like, what does sober
yeah,
curiosity even mean? And I at first, like, trying to weave in all the pieces of yourself, you feel like, how can I do this in a way that makes sense? But it's only it does make sense because it exists within you in a way that makes sense. It's
exactly.
just how you present it. And so I know for me, I was like, oh, I really want like holistic health and sober curiosity. And it's like, well, as it turns out, those things really do go hand in hand because a lot of people trying to drink less or worried about their health, supporting your health holistically helps you to have sustainable changes with your habits and drinking,
Absolutely.
etc. So it's interesting how you can like think things that are seemingly unrelated when you really tap into your authentic side and really get clear on your vision,
Mhm.
you can see how to weave them together
It's
and how they even evolve together within you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny. So my dad is very much like quizzing me on whether I've done all the business things correct. And my mom especially.
Yeah.
So I opened my storefront October 2019 and then the
Mhm.
whole world blew up like
Oh,
5 months later.
yeah.
So, we are still cleaning up from that mess a little bit. But
Yeah.
I can remember I just gotten out of a horrible relationship and I was living at home and it was not good. And
Mhm.
I can remember my mom, she's a big germaphobe. And so she was
Yeah.
like, "No one is gonna wanna refill anything now after COVID." And I was like, "I understand why you think that, and you are wrong." Like, I don't know how to
Yeah.
tell you that you're wrong, but you're wrong. Like, people are gonna want
Yeah.
refills, they're gonna want reusable packaging, they're gonna still care about zero waste, even though everything has to be disposable right now for health reasons.
Yeah. It was truly hard to see beyond, like, the chaos that was COVID
Mhm.
to any sense or return of normalcy. So I do see her, concern, but also good for you for like, "No,
No, okay.
actually, you're wrong. Still gonna forge ahead with my business model. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
Amazing. So, yeah, you've just kind of chosen, to, uh forge ahead and like take thing and recognize that you're in different spaces in your life, right? And it is interesting how you said a little bit ago that your Google feeds are curated differently. And it's so true because once you do start going down a specific path, you pretty quickly realize and start aligning with other people on a similar path and realizing when you are outside of it, you may have thought, like, how many people are interested in this? But once you're in it, you see how many people are.
Mhm.
And it allows you to kind of have even more faith in your vision because you're like, oh, wow, there is actually a lot of people that are into zero waste or apothecary goods or
Mhm.
witchcrafting ingredients. And so it's just, there's there's someone out there for everyone,
Well, right. I started I think especially when I started on TikTok, I started seeing like, people doing recipes or people cleaning their houses or whatever. And you think about the concept of like duetting a video. I could duet
Mhm.
so many videos. And that to me was evidence that my products could live in almost anyone's home, whether you care about witchcraft or zero
Right.
waste or not. We made them aesthetically pleasing on purpose. We made them, price conscious on purpose so that even if you're not into these sort of niche aspects of the business owner, it's still a product that is
Mhm.
for everyone.
Yeah, and not to mention that clean personal care and like cleaning products are pretty big right
Mm-hmm.
now and only going to get bigger, I think, once awareness continues to rise around what shit is in our shit,
Well, and how much
Like
we're
you said
paying
earlier.
for it. Like, right,
Yeah.
I will give a pass to anyone who's like, give me the bleach. Of course. If that's how you want to clean your house, that's how you want to clean your house, of course. I prefer the argument about the like bottles of dish soap and looking at how much water is in them when you could be
Mhm.
purchasing a concentrate that also costs less to ship and adding your own
Right.
water at home. Like the cost difference, the amount that we are being cost gouged um,
Mhm.
by these kinds of mass produced products is infuriating as well because that money could be spent elsewhere.
Yeah, totally. And the thing too is not everyone wants to make homemade,
No?
like you said, some people are like, I don't care, I just want my bleach and like back off, which is fine. But then there's also lots of people that don't realize they're getting price gouged, don't realize how easy at-home solutions are to make, don't realize how there is a lot of things that in uh large exposure levels aren't good for
Right.
us, right? And they can accumulate in our bodies. And so I think too, just as people become more aware of those different areas, that it's only going to increase in popularity, that people are either doing more stuff on their own, or B, at least trying to buy more consciously from companies that are more in
Mm-hmm.
alignment with their values as awareness increases.
Yeah, I mean, for us too, like I am deeply neurodivergent, and
Yeah.
that falls under like categories of disability as well. So I also see a lot of eco policing around plastic as it is utilized for people with disabilities, right? You look at someone with, hands and fingers that works, goes to the grocery store and goes, "Who needs this cut mango in this plastic container?"
Mhm.
Or "Who needs this peeled orange in a plastic container?" The answer is
Mhm.
someone whose hands don't work so good. Um
Mhm.
so it's both about being aware of at what ability level are you capable of reducing plastic and at what
Mhm.
level do you need it? Like, I think that's
Right.
an important conversation to have too, um, both so that individuals can feel less guilty about utilizing the items that are made for them, but also maybe there's
Mhm.
a solution that a company could come up with to create the same kind of container um, out of materials that are not plastic.
Yeah. First of all, I would have never even thought of that, so thank you for raising that, point, and second of all, just kind of re-illustrates that idea of, like, moving away from all or nothing thinking and just doing the best you can with what you have, and recognizing, like, okay, maybe some people aren't gonna want it, maybe some people really need to utilize higher levels of plastic, maybe some people actually don't give a shit about what's in their
Right.
products, and then maybe some people just don't know, and there's room for improvement, and kind of creating this space for us all to have informed decision making and um, products that support us
Yes,
best.
exactly.
So I love that. And I know you said you're extremely neurodivergent, and and that was something that's played a role in being more like of a big dreamer.
Definitely.
And so how do you and we were talking a little bit before we got on the podcast about sometimes that's like bit you in the ass a little bit because people are just like, okay, what the hell are you talking about when you share your and so what lessons have you learned around sharing your dreams, especially being someone that really has a lot of big visions for yourself?
Yeah. So one of the things, um, I have known I've had ADHD for a really long time. So did my first grade teacher. She pulled my mom aside
Mhm.
and was like, "Nah, you might want to get this girl tested. She can't shut up and she can't sit still. She's really smart, but we can't get her to do anything." Um,
Yeah.
so with ADHD specifically, it's an issue of dopamine regulation. And you get dopamine from things like accomplishing tasks, things that are fun, things that are new and exciting and novel. So for me, jumping around to different kinds of jobs or thinking that I just discovered the next new thing that's going to fix all my problems, d-
Yeah.
completely a symptom. Um, so once you learn that, like I didn't put it together that me having this new idea was me seeking dopamine. Once you learn that, you can go, okay, is this like really a thing I want to do? Or do I just need to go like eat a piece of chocolate and then I'll be okay? Like, do
Yeah.
I just need a sugar hit?
Yeah.
Or do I need to go to the gym? Or do I need to do these other things that can get me almost, it's not healthier dopamine, but like more sustainable, less disruptive dopamine?
Right.
Um, so
Then like starting a new job or something.
exactly. Starting a new job, coloring your
That's
hair a
so
different color. Like a lot of
yeah.
people with these kinds that don't understand where these urges are coming from are like spending big amounts of money, making big life changes, um,
Acting on impulse
acting
more
on
than if
your body begging for, it's like your body begging for sugar. Like it feels the same.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so for me, a lot of my sort of business ventures have been me trying to seek some sort of sustainable amount of dopamine. Um,
Right.
and what I'm learning about myself sort of over this last year is all of these things that have been encompassed in my business. Um, the witchcraft aspect keeps the attention of my ADHD because I can do new stuff. I can have beautiful, aesthetically pleasing things, and it's a little bit consumable. Where I'm working with tea and food and like more kitchen witchcraft type of stuff, it keeps my
Mhm.
attention in a sustainable and joyful and fulfilling way. And the zero waste calms and soothes my autism.
Yeah.
So, you sort of look back retroactively at these things that you're drawn to and why you're drawn to them. And it's really cool to see that, like, oh, I landed in these two sort of hyperfixations or hobbies because they're doing my body and brain this service.
Right, and kind of a healthy outlet for
Yep.
that. And, yeah, I think shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say now. I always do this. I
Oh,
get, like, so
you
absorbed
were
in
asking me about, thinking about sharing my ideas with people. Um,
Yeah.
so what I've learned for my brain specifically is thinking about the idea and talking about the idea is almost as good for me as actually doing the idea. Like I can really lose
Mhm.
steam after I tell someone about my fun new idea, especially if they think it's a bad idea.
Yeah,
Or
if you're an out loud external processor.
absolutely.
And so recognizing like, okay, I probably do enjoy sharing this idea, but it has to be with the right person, which is so that applies, I feel like, to anyone's like when we're excited about something or we have big visions, like you go share it with someone who's like, oh, are you sure about that? It's like,
Right.
okay, well, thanks a lot. Or, they're doubtful or hesitant or
Mhm.
apprehensive. Which I think is actually kind of a common reaction when you have big dreams or big visions, or especially ones that are unconventional and people are just kind of um, not someone who thinks outside the box, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just like learning what audience to share your ideas with. And I also remembered what I was going to
Oh,
say, which was that uh, the level of awareness around our own like shortcomings or just like our own tendencies, I think is so key, right? In creating just a healthy environment for ourselves. Because I think so often, whether it's neurodivergency or any type of habit we have that is operating subconsciously and we're not aware of it, it's like running the show as opposed to us being aware of it and then being able to curate our life accordingly and kind of in support of it and integrating it.
absolutely.
So,
It's so funny. Whenever I think about it, I always think about my brain as like a toddler. Like, how exhausting would it be to be running behind your, I don't know, 2 or 3-year-old all day going, don't open that cabinet. Don't get that thing. Don't get that whatever. Or picking them up and moving them from a place they shouldn't be. Versus the energy it takes maybe up front to create a space for them where they can do whatever they want. Right? You think about
yeah.
these people that I've seen on social media creating like that big playpen where there's lots of soft stuff, or people creating these sort of elaborate like play places where their kids can just do what their bodies want to do without being in danger
Yeah.
and without ruining the spaces that are curated for the adults, right? For
Mhm.
me, it's about putting, bumpers and baby gates on my life so that I'm not like gripping and like clenching my butt all the time, trying to get the toddler that lives inside my brain to stop like running off in different directions.
Yeah, and that takes so much self-awareness to be able to get to that space and to be able to like harness that in a way that allows you to express yourself in your life in a way that feels balanced and healthy and like you're in control rather than, you know, autism or it being in control of you, right? It's
Yeah,
like you're able to kind of harness it in a way that you're almost optimizing these things that people tend to look at as disabilities. And it's like really can be a strength when you put yourself in the right environment to capitalize on it.
absolutely. You just have to like, right, like you're saying, um in your work, it may be like some sort of brain wiring, but it also may be just like a habit you've sort of fallen into or something you've received from your parents as like this weird hand-me-down gift that you can actually undo. Um, and that's just as powerful too, to be like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
actually want to be doing that, so I can change it. And then,
Mhm.
from a like brain wiring perspective, it can be a lot about accepting that this is what my brain wants to do and that can't change. So, how do we work
Mhm.
with it rather than against it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like even most of the people I work with, I would say, aren't people who are like physically dependent on
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. It's more so gray area drinkers. And so I always talk to people about creating an environment for their alcohol free life to thrive because we fail to recognize a lot of times how important our environment is. And I think, especially in the realm of coaching, we talk a lot about goal
Yeah.
setting and visualizing the person you want to be and where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years and what are your values and let's set like goals to help you get there. But I think sometimes what we forget to do before that is the shadow work component of addressing like the challenges, obstacles, and barriers, the self-sabotaging, the limiting beliefs, all of these things that are actually holding us back in the first place. Like if if we had addressed those, we'd already kind of be where we want to
Right.
go. So it's like
Absolutely.
creating goals and doing all these things are really helpful and constructive and productive to move you ahead. But if you're not addressing like what's and really like getting reflective and watering your self awareness, then it's kind of hard to ever move ahead because you're going to keep like not accomplishing your goals and being like, oh, I failed again or this or that. It's like, well, it's not that you're failing at the goals. It's that you're failing at looking at what's holding you back first before trying to move ahead.
Absolutely. You have to get real with yourself on what the variables are you're working with.
Mhm.
Because if you think you're dealing with a different set of variables, it's never going to work. Like you're just not dealing
Yeah.
with the reality of where you are starting from.
Exactly. And just kind of beating your head against the wall, like, why am I not like getting where I want to
Mm-hmm.
go? It's like, well, have you looked at your programming? Have you looked at your limiting beliefs? Like, have you looked at your inner dialogue? Have you looked at some of your choices? I know for so long I envisioned myself being a health coach and working in the realm of health and wellness, yet I like was binge drinking every weekend. And it's like sometimes you have to like address what's holding you back and have faith that what's meant to unfold will unfold from removing the obstacles rather than trying to like skip ahead, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so I know we're getting short on time. This is such an interesting conversation. I wanted to ask a couple more
Yeah.
questions before we go. And so the one, I guess, okay, so I have a few. We're gonna have to do like another podcast at some point. But I wanted to say I actually had posted a reel not that long ago, and it was some soundbite talking about witches, and my focus was really on reconnecting to
Yeah.
nature. And the soundbite was about witches and how, you know, witches, and I'm making
Yeah.
quotations for anyone listening on Spotify, were really villainized when in reality they were just people who taught us to reconnect to nature. Um, and so many people were like, witches are the
Oh
devil.
my
Like
God.
it
Oh, you
was
got on
even,
the wrong side of the algorithm on that one.
yeah, I got on the like Halloween witch
Yeah,
side
yeah,
of the
yeah.
algorithm where it's like devils, witches eat babies and witches are the devil and like God bless your soul, you're going to hell. And to me, I always think of, I don't envision like the Halloween hocus
Mm-hmm.
pocus witch. I think of witches as goddess worship, predating um organized
Mm-hmm.
religion and just the kind of feminine archetype that is more in touch with nature, more in touch with healing ourselves naturally, and just more in touch with uh, the Mother Earth and cycles and
Mm-hmm.
seasons and plant based medicine. And I think a lot of that, there's a lot of history that goes along with the witch hunts and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we think of witches, like how would you define a modern witch? Because I want to hear what yours is as someone who runs an
Yeah.
apothecary.
So for me, like nutshell, it's about alchemizing. So
Mm-hmm.
alchemy, when you hear it in certain contexts, is about turning lead into gold. For me, it's about um, transmuting energy. So can I
Yeah.
transmute the energy of, I don't know, feeling really defeated because this thing isn't working? Can I transmute
Mm-hmm.
that into focus on a different project that might be more aligned with who I am? Um, for me, it's my witchcraft practice is very practical. It's kitchen witchcraft, which is like just acknowledging the historical magical properties of the foods that we eat every day and how they fit culturally into different uh, cultures. Like I'm Italian, and basil and tomatoes and salt and all of that when you're making a homemade tomato sauce, like all of those things have different magical properties. And you can add in your intention and then feed your family with that um transmuted energy.
Right.
Um
So it's almost fueling the ingredients we use with energetic properties and the transmutation of energy from like a negative, I guess, a negative space to a more constructive, positive space, or
Sure.
moving through uncomfortable emotions to kind of get on the other side or switch
Yeah,
gears.
and you know, when you think about it from like a spiritual perspective, you can think about what kinds of situations am I being presented right now? What feelings am I having? What energy is being tossed my way? How can I sort of run it through myself and spit it out as something creative? And, you know, not necessarily good or bad, but the idea of yourself as a creative vessel.
Right.
And not necessarily like a like generative creative vessel where you're like taking materials like out of nowhere and creating something, but really looking at our environments and what we have to work with and combining that with who we are and figuring out what we can create from that.
Yeah, such a beautiful way of explaining it. It's just what lessons can I get out of this
Mm-hmm.
experience too? And how can I look at something that may be more challenging and see like what I'm actually gaining from it, whether it's new perspective, learning, evolution of self.
Absolutely. And it can be a little bit more
Yeah. Oh,
fun too. Like I do a lot of glamour magic as well because very into, you know, hair, makeup, clothes and all of that. Glamour magic is usually about like enchanted items or enchanting yourself to have this sort of like veil on that is like attractive or whatever, makes you look different. But for me, it's
yeah.
like, can I utilize maybe not an enchanted object, but can I utilize doing my hair, dyeing my hair, putting makeup on to alchemize a feeling of um like joy and play into confidence? Can I transmute these
Hmm.
feelings through some sort of ritual? And, you know, if you can do that just in your brain, good on you. I can't. I have to like I
Yeah.
have to like do some sort of ritual to create that alchemization, and
Hmm.
that's where I fall into a more witchcraft category than just a general spiritual category.
And just a
Exactly.
mindset
Not lots
or
of mindset work around here.
yeah, so it's just utilizing ritualization to
Mhm.
support spiritual development, mindset, transformation,
Yes.
etc. So cool. Oh my God, we could do a whole podcast on witchy shit. I wanted to say too, because I know I saw on your website a little bit about astrology. And so do you feel like that's integrated into your whole concept of witchcraft is
Definitely in
um
like a collective consciousness kind of way. Like when I think about what energy I have to work with, like I'm not talking about just the energy that even like my human brain can understand. It's the energy that is existing in the whole of the universe. So I don't really know that much
mm,
about astrology, but um I will like pop in on people that I know do know about astrology and see like what the hell is happening
yeah.
this week that's making me feel like this.
Right. Yes, and in terms of a like collective space,
Yeah.
astrology is a tool for you to tap into what's going on right now in the world that could be impacting my
Hmm.
energy. That's the energy I'm working with through witchcraft
Yes.
rituals. Love it. Yeah, I know. I've been really interested in, I've always liked astrology, as not some guiding practice, but just so fun to learn more about. Same thing with human design. It's
Yes,
so
yes. I had
fun
someone do my
to
human
look
design
at.
a little while ago.
Oh my gosh, what was
So
it?
I'm a projector.
I am a manifester.
Very cool. Yeah, it made a lot of sense
Yeah.
for me because especially the invitation need, like I won't even really talk until someone's like, "Lindsay, what do you think?" And now I'm like, "Oh, cool, I have
Yeah.
permission to speak. Let's go."
You're like, okay, invitation
Yeah.
accepted. No, yeah, that's not me. I'm not a projector in that at all, and that makes sense because I don't need an invitation. Hence the reason why I created a podcast. I'm like, everybody, listen to me talk. I know you didn't ask, but here I am. But oh my God, I have even more
I
questions,
mean, I don't
but
have
I
anywhere to
know
be. Like, if you're in a time
I know
crunch, we can end, but I'm
well, okay, I'll ask my
okay.
last one. I just don't want to, because people lose interest. You know, people these days out here love you all, but the attention spans aren't lengthy these days. You know, you're on
Yep.
TikTok. You gotta make them like quick. But this is one last question I do have, which is before, well, okay, like three most underrated herbs if you had to like pick the top three that are lesser known that you want to share with
Oh,
people.
interesting. It's so funny. I just made a TikTok about this. Not about the herbs, but about how like I don't actually really know that much about herbs. Because like when I started learning about herbs, I got sidetracked by making sure that I could get the herbs zero waste, that I just like totally forgot to learn about
Yeah.
the herbs. But I
Yeah.
think one that comes to mind is like marshmallow root for sore throats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to like scan my shelves. Calendula we
I
sell a
read
lot of as well. Really awesome for skincare applications. I usually
yeah,
infuse
yeah,
chamomile and calendula in like jojoba oil and then use that as like my finishing oil like before I go to bed, and
right.
redness gone. Totally gone.
Oh, that's so good to
Mhm.
know. That's a great one. I'm definitely like a pink Irish lady,
Yes, me
so
too.
I calendula was soothing. So, and a lot of like first aid ointments for scarring and
hmm
stuff. And so marshmallow for sore throat,
Oh,
calendula for soothing
yes.
skin,
So
and
that's
what
my last
else?
one. I'll run down our categories. So we have butters, carrier liquids, carrier oils, clays, herbs, salt, spices, waxes. So
Um,
one of our really underrated ones also is glycerin. So we sell glycerin
mm,
in, big glass jars, but it is the most hydrating um thing you can get. And so this is
mhm,
what I was talking about earlier, talking about paying for something like hyaluronic acid or paying for a skincare product that is mostly glycerin
mhm.
anyway. Glycerin is so cheap and it actually mimics water molecules in your skin. So instead
Nice.
of hyaluronic acid, which is a humectant, which pulls water into your skin, glycerin can
Mhm.
actually replace water in your skin, making it look hydrated. And I'll put it either in like a little spray bottle, like dilute half and half with water and put it on my face like that. Or you just take like 2 drops and pat it into your face after you wash your face. Uh, Magic.
Hydrating AF.
Yes.
Okay, so then we're doing marshmallow root, calendula, and
Yes.
glycerin. Three
Love
like
them.
must
Underrated for sure.
love it. Awesome. Okay. And then I guess my last question before just sharing where people can find you and buy your shit, honey. I wanted to ask about what pieces of advice you would have, whether it be for people who are
Mhm.
neurodivergent, entrepreneurs, non-conventional visionaries, etc., like all of the above. Kind of what would your advice be?
My advice is that there actually is a way to create a place for yourself in the world. You're going to get a lot of advice about molding to existing slots. And it really is possible. It's a lot harder up front, but a lot more rewarding and healthy long term to actually carve out and create your own spot to be. Um, I am thoroughly unemployable because of who I am as a person. And, the ADHD makes me unreliable and the autism makes me very critical and unable to go along with existing systems that don't make sense. Um, so, and also like I'm up till 5 a.m. and sleep till noon and get all my work done. Like I have absolutely carved out a spot for who I am. So it's about learning who you are and what kinds of things fit for you. If you're not necessarily interested in being an entrepreneur, but you have a shifted sleep schedule like I do, like maybe night shift is for you. Maybe something where you can pick your own hours is for you. It's not selfish or silly to try to find a place in the world that works for you rather than trying to shove yourself into a spot that just happens to be empty.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it.
Because
Don't
it
try to
doesn't
shove
work.
yourself.
Like, it's exhausting
Yeah.
and painful, and you're not able to give what you have to give if you are constantly trying to work against these systems. Like, it, all of the time over the last 3 years, we went full time in the business in October. But before
Mhm.
then, I had nanny jobs, I had coffee shop jobs, I had all this stuff. And prying myself out of bed at 7 a.m. is like shoving forks in my eyes. Like, it is the worst thing I can do to myself. And
I'm like the opposite. I'm like 5 a.m. Like, yes.
amazing. But if I were to try to keep you up late at night, you'd be like, you're
I
torturing
would
me.
I'd be shoving forks in your eyes.
So it's
No,
for me, it's almost an efficiency thing. Like, it's a waste of my energy to be using what little energy I have on getting myself up in the morning when I could be using that energy to market my business or create cool things or whatever. Like, we only have so much energy in the day, and where do you want to spend it? Do you want to spend it trying to get on a different sleep schedule? Do you want to spend it like
forcing yourself into a empty slot.
into an empty slot? But like, I'm even thinking specifically about, like, if you have sensory issues around like professional clothing, like, how much energy are you spending just trying to like deal with being in pants and a shirt to sit at your desk to do your job when you could be in a slightly
Fluorescent
different
light.
job where you don't have to dress that way, and you can
Right.
then use that energy for something else and really give your gifts to the world.
Yeah, I love that. It's just like working in flow with what you have to offer and looking inward to see what that is instead of externally to kind of be like, okay, what should I be doing? What's everyone else doing? And in fact, I think it's so amazing to be able to tap into what makes you different and creating something that is different and leading the way for other people to do the same thing. I think there's many people out there who just choose conventional jobs and go along with societal programming that could be a lot happier doing something else. But when we don't have examples provided to us of people like living courageously or kind of living life outside the box, and it's scary to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times when you do face backlash or doubt or questioning, when you do choose a more unconventional path, it only continues to strengthen and develop your character
Yes.
and further your evolution as a person. So in your conviction and determination with what you're doing, I know for me, when people were like, what are you talking about, sober curious, I'm like, well, I know that I was a gray area drinker, and I know that it was like definitely slowly killing my
Right.
soul. I'm sure there's like other people out there that are like not alcoholics that are drinking and they want to be healthy and vibrant and alive, and like if you have the capacity to like imagine that potential within you, there is undoubtedly other people out there, like you said, who are interested in the same weird shit we're
Yep.
interested in, or have the same like thoughts, but they're just like, oh well, this is what everyone else is doing. And it's just not only like does backlash or doubt, it sucks at times, but it's ultimately kind of a gift anyways, because it just allows you to only deepen your values and commitment to what you're creating and really get clear on why you're doing it. When people were questioning me, I know it felt that way, where it's like, okay, well, not only do I have to prove you wrong
Now I have
now,
to do
but
it.
I've thought about it
Oh
a
my
lot
God,
more,
the
and it
things
makes
I've
me
accomplished out of spite. Holy shit.
Bite is a driving motivational force. You're like, oh yeah,
Yep.
fuck you.
Well,
I'm
and
gonna be famous for my zero waste apothecary.
it solidifies every time. Like you also have to be real. You have to like live in the world and be realistic and pay your bills. Like you can't start a sober curious health coaching business and quit your day job right away. And you have
Mhm.
to sometimes you have to transition into these places that feel better.
Yeah,
Or I have a friend that comes and helps me sometimes, and she's like, listen, I'm a number two, and I know that. Like, I'm a supporting character when it comes to like work.
critical.
And hell yeah, like not all of us are going to be visionary business owners. Sometimes we are the second, third, or fourth person in that visionary company that we align with. um and that
Right.
can be fine too.
It's all about that self-awareness, like you said
Hmm.
earlier, that allows you to curate the environment that's fosters your
Hmm.
self-expression the most.
Yep,
And
that
once
is
you
the
know
game over
that,
here.
yeah, you can identify obstacles preventing you from getting there. You can set visions that are more personalized according to your own, um, in order to your own strengths, weaknesses, all the things. But all right, before we go on forever and ever, where can people find you to buy the witchy shit and the personal care product ingredients and glycerin?
Yes. Okay. So, we are on all of the social medias at Skyclad
Oh,
Apothecary.
I'm interrupting you again because I have to say, and by the way, I used to be so bad at interrupting, so I've really been working on it with this podcast. And obviously, working with clients can't be interrupting them all the time. But I did want to
Yes.
say Lindsay is famous
Oh
on
my
TikTok.
God, am not. I just hit 61K, which was very exciting.
That's famous to
It's good,
me.
but it doesn't mean anything. Like, I wish it meant something. Like, I wish it meant that like 61,000 people like are probably going to see my video. It just like doesn't work that way. Uh,
So weird. You go viral, and then the next one you'll get like 2 views,
right.
and you're like, well, what is the point of all these people that just followed me if no one sees it?
Yeah. I just like
Very
hope
strange.
that, they see me the next time there's an interesting video, or if they're like really looking for ingredients or something, or if their algorithm, is giving them recipes and then they give them me, like, I just cross my fingers. But um it's
Yeah,
definitely
free
like my
marketing.
favorite part. Like one of my favorite parts about running my business is doing the content marketing for it.
You like dopamine, honey?
Yeah, 100%. I
Talk about
I
it.
always joke with my
Yeah.
parents, like, whatever, like 5 grand a year you guys used to spend on like my dance lessons, like, my studio was very musical theater focused. I was like, cool,
Right.
all that lip sync work, like all that like mime work, like I'm using it now.
Yeah. See? Oh, that's beautiful. All right. So
Yeah, so Skyclad
TikTok
Apothecary on
is
all socials, skycladapothecary.com, to purchase ingredients, and also housed on that website is our new offering, the Skyclad Coven. So Skyclad Coven is, I had a couple of people reach out to me being like, I don't need any ingredients right now, but like, I want to support you. Like, how could I possibly do that? And I was like, I have no fucking idea. Um, but I've created this offering now where there's a very low cost, like $3 a month tier, which is geared toward people who want to vote with their dollars but don't need ingredients right now, right? A big tenet of our business is also not encouraging overconsumption. So I can't get on
right.
my marketing platforms and be like, buy more chamomile, it's
My
half off
favorite.
today. Like, that's not in alignment with our business values. So if you don't need any ingredients, but you still want to support us, there's this $3 a month or $30 a year tier where you get access to a community Discord server, where,
Mhm.
we all jump in and share our altars and share what's going on with our brains and share what's going on, with our zero waste stuff. It's a budding, very cool community already. We have sort of a mid-tier level, $6 a month, where that chamomile literature review will live. It's got 2 sections: a Book of Shadows, which I'm writing a lot like a textbook, so a lot of stuff about zero waste that is just sort of factual, a lot of stuff, or like resources. And then a grimoire, which is me, reporting on my own practice and what's actually happening like in my life. And then our tippy top $10 tier is laying all of those things over the Witch's Wheel of the Year. So we just did a bunch of content, a bunch of zero waste witchy content around Ostara. So we did like zero waste Easter baskets and, just other things around there. And we're gearing up to do some content around Beltane. And we'll be doing that throughout the year. And that's that tippy top
Amazing.
tier.
So it's everything that's included in the other ones,
Correct.
plus kind of like calendar things that are relevant based on
To
the
the
part of the year you're
energetic
in.
part of the year that we're in right now, all zero waste, all through a neurodivergence lens. And everyone at every tier gets access to the community Discord server. I'm very excited to see that, start filling up. Really was born out of this desire to give people a way to support us when they don't actually need ingredients. But I'm also really excited to make all this content.
Yeah, so amazing. Okay, we're gonna have Lindsay back on to talk about all things neurodivergent and operating in the world, especially entrepreneurship and more witchcraft. We got to talk about that more next time. So there's so many cool areas to talk about that. I know I could learn more for sure about neurodivergence, even how you were talking about things that would be more helpful for someone who is neurodivergent that I would never even think of, right? So bringing awareness to that is really cool too. So thanks for being here. We'll have to
Thank
schedule
you for
another one.
having me. Can't wait to come back.
Yes. I know, so fun, right? Aren't these so fun? But yeah, so anyways, Lindsay Granger, people, Skyclad Apothecary, and thanks for tuning in. As always, share, like, subscribe. I harass you at the end of every podcast to do it. So if you enjoy it and it resonates, do it up. Give me some feedback and let us know what you would like to hear more about from Lindsay next time in any of these areas. And so we can maybe make some questions together. But otherwise, toodaloo until next time.